Hey guys, thanks for stopping by and checking this out. So, as the title states, this video is about the cheap Chinese bead rollers, and whether it be Harbor Freight or eBay special or wherever you get it, I'm pretty convinced they all come from the same factories in China, or close. But anyways, the design is something that's been around for a long time. And if you get the right one, it can be a pretty substantial tool, pretty good tool. The particular one that I have here is a Woodward Fab. And the reason I chose Woodward Fab mostly is because they had the quickest shipping time, honestly, when I was looking for one. And number two, this plate is a little bit thicker than some of the other knockoff ones. There's some advantages to that we'll show you in just a moment. But with any of these Chinese tools, I like to think of them like a kit. Like you can buy the tool, but don't expect to just go to work with it. You get the tool, and then you're going to have to make adjustments and engineer some things to get them to work the way that you think they should, or the way that they really should. So you got to keep in mind, these are built. It's a business. They want to crank them out and sell as many as they can, so they take shortcuts and do cheap stuff to get them out the door. And the price tag is really attractive to a lot of people, myself included, so we pick them up. But there are things we can do to make this machine perform a lot better than it does right off the boat. So let's take a look at it and see what we can see. All right, so we'll just start at the base. Most of my tools are on some kind of round base, round platform. The reason I like that is because you can roll them around. This one's kind of awkward because the weight is kind of at the top, so it's kind of goofy to roll around. But anyways, this is a brake drum from a semi. I bought it at a scrapyard. I think I probably paid too much for it because they made me pay scrap weight on it, and it was, I don't know, I think I probably gave 40 bucks for this thing or something like that, it pissed me off. And then secondly, this round plate right here, it's, I don't know, 1/8 inch or something, 3/16. And I cut this out on my plasma table. I measured out the bolt pattern for the drum and blazed that out, and then just anchored it down onto the plate. So the main post here is just a piece of pipe that I found at the scrapyard also. I don't know what it is, but it's super hard. I couldn't cut it on my bandsaw. I had to cut it with a cutoff wheel. And so I just cut it flat here, and then up top, I'll show you in just a minute, I'll move the camera, I kind of slotted it for the plate here to fit into. And then right here, these are just some old scrap metal. I rounded off the edges with a forming tool on the lathe and welded them up to give me a place to put my dies. Believe it or not, I just did that today. I've had this tool for like a year, and all the dies have just been sitting on here on the base plate. But anyways, I finally got around to doing that. So yep, nothing too remarkable about the base and the stand. Let's move up and take a look at the tool itself. So I mentioned earlier that the reason I went with Woodward Fab is because the plate was thicker, and the plate on these is thicker on this Woodward Fab one than some of the other ones that you can get from China or wherever. Well, this is from China, but whatever. The reason this is important is because a lot of these will flex this way. Obviously the shape of the steel isn't going to let that mouth open up, but what it does, this one actually still does it, but it'll flex, like when you're rolling a big piece, it'll flex that way. And there's some reinforcements that still need to be made to mine. I primarily roll aluminum right now, so it doesn't move around too much, but with some thicker gauge sheet metal, it would definitely distort. But anyhow, that's a good view of the thicker material that the Woodward Fab bead roller is made from. I stiffened up the top plate, or I stiffened up the top with a plate here that you saw earlier. And basically this is what I was talking about when it won't let the jaws open up or won't let the dies come apart this way. This vertical piece of plate, this 1/8 inch plate, is going to prevent that. So that's the only modification I've made to the structure of the bead roller itself. This handle here doesn't come with this. It comes with just a bolt that you got to turn with a wrench. This is an old hand wheel off of my milling machine. I put a power feed on it, so I had this old handle laying around. So there's another mod I want to do. I want to spring this, make it spring loaded, so when you back it off, when you back off the adjustment screw, it pulls that back up. So that's something I'll probably do in the future. But this die set right here is a factory die. you'll notice it's a lot shinier than the other dies, and that's because I took some material off of this on the lathe, because mostly it wasn't round. It wasn't 100% round, or it probably was round, but it wasn't on center with the middle of the tool. So I took a skim coat or skim pass off. What I was pleasantly surprised to find is that that is hard. These are hardened steel. The dies are definitely hard. So that was a big bonus in my mind. Let's go around to the other side and take a look at the drive system that I came up with. Okay, so bead rollers are kind of hard to operate. Manual ones are difficult to operate if you're doing a big piece, because you have to run that hand crank. Move that thing. You got to run the hand crank by yourself, and then feed your material as well. Well, with the addition of a motor, it makes it kind of a one-man show. This motor is a winch motor. It is like a, I don't know, 3,000 pound, 2,500 pound winch motor from Harbor Freight. And I made a bracket that I CAD designed and then burned out on the CNC table, and just welded the union to the drive gear here at the bottom. It's all removable, and now I can control this with my foot. I'll show you the electronics here in a little bit. I do have a PMW pulse width, PWM pulse width modulator with a rheostat and a forward and reverse switch, as well as a power supply and a foot switch that operates it. It's not in an enclosure as of now. Eventually I would like to add an enclosure to the stand here to make everything kind of more compact, just so there's like less wiring and stuff. You'll see the wiring here in a second. It's a mess. So Harbor Freight, 3,000 pound winch, I believe, and then homemade plate here on the back that adapts it all. And it just uses the factory pickup points for these inboard gears here, and I'll show you that now. Okay, here's my plate that I designed. It uses the factory pickup points on the winch and the factory pickup points on the bead roller. The only kind of finicky part was I had to space this off of the main plate a certain distance to get the motor axis in line with the drive gear, which is the bottom roller here on the machine. Once I got that in, it all went together, and it was just a matter of fine-tuning the position. And I do leave it a little bit loose. That way, if it needs to move around a little bit, because when I welded everything, it's not exactly perfect. And the reason it's not exactly perfect is because, believe it or not, like I said, Harbor Freight, the axis of this winch motor is not lined up with the gear that's coming out of it. It kind of sits there and does like a waller thing. So I gave it a little room, and every once in a while you'll see it kind of move or flex, but it really does work great for what we're using it for here. So homemade plate, factory pickup points, and I have some Delrin bushings that I spun down on the lathe to stand it off the right amount. Okay, electronics, try not to crucify me here. These are all exposed for the time being, and they won't be forever here. So let's see, there we go. We powered it up here, and what we'll get, I have a foot pedal down here. I don't know if it's in frame or not, but let's see, we'll go forward, and we'll give it a little bit of power here. There we go, we got it full blast here. And so the way I have it wired up is everything's off until I hit the foot pedal. Here's the foot pedal. Also a scrapyard find. Hit the foot pedal, and you notice it kind of had a little soft start. So hit the pedal, and the readout here reads in percentage of whatever the max RPM is, whatever it is, I don't know. But forward, off, and reverse switch, digital readout in percents again, and then a rheostat. And you can turn this thing way down. So let's see. See, right now it's reading 0. We'll crank it up a little bit. It doesn't usually move under about 15%. So there's 19%. And I'm sure you can hear that, but it is just crawling right now. And then when you let go, it stops immediately. But one of the features that I really like is it gives it a soft start. So when I'm feeding a panel in, click, and then it slowly gets into it, and it keeps that soft start even if you've got it really ramped up. So that's kind of an added bonus that I didn't expect, but I'm very happy to have. It's worked great. So let's take a look at what it looks like from an operator's perspective when we're using it. Okay, so we'll say that we're gonna run this bead in here. So we'll get the pedal kind of where we want it. Get the test the speed. That's a little hot. Let's slow it down just a little bit. We'll slow it down. That's probably a little slow. That'll work. So we'll bring the panel up here, and we can set our die. The tension on it right there. Just give it a couple clicks, and then we'll just go ahead and feed this thing through. Got both hands on the tool, or on the part rather. Nice and controlled. And we'll see about making the turn here. Oh, it's starting to slow down a little bit, you can hear that. But the motor is pretty high torque because it's a winch, so it'll get it. Okay, and you can see that very easy to control, you know, just with your foot. And the only thing that you can't really do right now, maybe when the electronics are all boxed up, you can't really adjust the speed on the fly, but once I put everything in an enclosure and hopefully maybe mount it in this kind of area where I could, that would be a big bonus. But anyways, a nice curve, you know, and that's just a first pass on, I don't know, some, what is this, 26 gauge, so this is relatively thin stuff. But you can see it's been through the English wheel a couple times for practice and stuff. But anyhow, that's what I've done to the cheap bead roller to make it more user-friendly for me. So hopefully you picked up something from that. If you have any questions, please leave them. If you have any input, I'd love to hear what you got. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, and see you soon.